Jacqueline Rinksmeyer with the Medina Chamber of Commerce, and I'm here today with
Matt Wiederhold from Main Street, Medina.
and
Brad Root, the AI Root Company.
and we are continuing our tour of centuries-old business in honor of Medina's Bicentennial. Brad, can you tell us a little bit about AI Root Company?
Well, the AI Root Company was established in 1869. AI had his manufacturing jewelry store in the town square, which there's a plaque thereof. And in 1878, he built his very first building on what was the old county fairgrounds.
Oh, interesting.
So that was in 1878, first brick building. There was already a railroad going north and south. He provided land for the railroad to go east and west and began to grow his beekeeping business.
And is that where we're standing now amongst the bees?
We are at his homestead that was finished in 1883, and as part of that we put in a pollinator garden along with 4 hives here.
Lovely.
So this being the homestead, AI built his home and his business here, but he had also bought the entire county fairgrounds, and so he put plots of land for his kids to build their home. So at one point in time the town called this Rootsville for the west end of town. AI was just an avid gardener, always was. He grew up on his family farm, which was just down the road. If you go up here to Marks Road, go to the second light, at that intersection for Fenn was where their log cabin was, their family farm, and they built the house that's right at that intersection.
Really?
Yes.
Never knew that. That's super
So because he was a bit more frail than his brothers, he actually spent more time around the farmhouse working with his mom in the gardens, self-educating himself. And so the rhododendron plants that he planted here literally went up to the second floor. He was so avid at gardening. He's also part of the reason that there's so many dandelions around. He would import dandelions from around the world, and his bees distributed them throughout Medina. So the company was established in 1869. That's 4 years after the bees landed on his windows at his manufacturing jewelry store that began his intrigue about honeybees. By 1869, he was really focused solely on this new business that really excited him. It wasn't until 1878 that he moved here, but on that very first building, at the very top, he put "In God We Trust" with a skep honeybee hive. We also did that in front of our retail store here. AI was very evangelical through his life and helped many denominations grow in their faith. And in his monthly magazine that we still publish today since 1873, he would have an article that talked about our homes, his faith. His wife also talked about gardening and things around the house, but it was very much a sort of how-to of many things. The original manufacturing facility was no longer really conducive for manufacturing, so in the late 1980s we turned it into retail space. And so now we have 22,000 square feet of retail space sort of behind our brick facade here. So well worth coming to visit and see our entire selection. But this allows us to understand what retailers go through, since we sell candles to retailers, but 2/3 of our business is selling candles directly to the churches.
So tell us a little bit about who we're standing before.
So this mural is the various individuals that have been president of the AI Root Company, starting out with Amos Ives Root on the left side. Next is his eldest son, Ernest Root, and then his younger son, Huber Root. They both served as president at different times. They were about 20 years age difference. And then Alan Root, who is my grandfather and Ernest's son, and then my father, John Root, and here I am.
Have you always worked at Root? Have you ever had any other job?
No, straight out of college I came into the family business. So though many advocate working outside the business, I sort of broke the norm and came right into the business. And it was always sort of my passion. As a young child, I got very involved in genealogy, and that pride of the family and business and all that just really endeared me. So these are actually toys. So we had a lumber yard that we could take all the way from huge logs that would come in here, make them into boards, make them into beehives and such. But we also wanted to produce some other things in that saw room. So one of the things they did was develop educational toys, and this is one of the things that my grandfather did in the 1940s and 1950s. And every piece of these is made of wood. There's no other plastics or metals. And even the wrenches were made of wood. And these were sort of hands-on toys for the kids to put together. We had educational letters. You can see here the airplane. There's a few other pieces in the Toy Museum up in the town square. But these were all meant to be educational toys. They were really sort of wiped out by the advent of plastics coming from China or Japan, and so we ended up ultimately getting out of it. So this is actually a catalog from 1938 for those toys. So in the late 1920s, we were doing beekeeping supplies and honey packaging, and we had been doing honey packaging for a number of years. We had a line of honey called Airline Honey. It was in all the Pullman railroad cars of the day and distributed fairly vastly. But it was very much a commodity-based product and almost put the company under. So in 1929, we sold that part of the business to Honey and Preserves and had open floor space. Huberut, the youngest son of AI, was sort of pondering and would sort of work half days in the business and the other half sort of deciding what we should do with that north side facility. And he was very inventive and he had a number of ideas of things. But the one that sort of really struck him was playing tennis with a local priest. He asked him to analyze the candles that they were getting from both Europe and New York and check them for beeswax content. Huber, having studied chemistry at Oberlin College, analyzed the candles and found that if they had beeswax, it was very little, if not none. And the Catholic Church required a fairly large content of beeswax in their candles. So we were making beekeeping supplies and they asked us, could you actually make some altar candles for us? So we took a wax sheet from a beehive, a piece of string, rolled up a candle, and that was our first altar candle. We've developed that through the years, but he also then took a hurricane globe from a gas lamp, put a cork in the bottom of it, ran a string up through it, poured wax into it, and that made the first bottled devotion light. Before that, you'd have oil in a cup, and it was very messy for sanctuary lights in the church. So you can see some examples down here of what a bottled devotion light would look like. Today, 2/3 of our business is religious candles to churches. 2/3 of the religious candle business is devotional lights to the Catholic Church. It was in the late 1960s, someone asked us to add fragrance and dye to a votive candle at our Texas facility. That began us to think of opening a showroom in the Dallas Merchandise Mart, adding pillar candles, taper candles, and we got into consumer candles. In 1918, the AI Rook Company bought both a beekeeping facility in Council Bluffs, Iowa, and San Antonio, Texas. They were beekeeping competitors of ours at the time. So it was definitely part of the beekeeping business. Once we got into religious candles, they also followed into that. And as I mentioned, Texas started us into the decorative candles that went to Iowa and then ultimately to Medina. We've closed Iowa in the late 1980s, early 1990s, and now all production of all products is done here in Medina.
Hi, we're here with Heather DeRocha, who is the Director of Marketing and Retail Operations for the Root Candle Company. And Heather, I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the space that we're standing in right now.
Certainly. This actually used to be the original retail space for root candles.
Okay.
We used to sell honey here back in the day, so people would come and pick up their fresh honey.
Nice.
We also sold beekeeping supplies. So today when you come, it's part of our huge retail space,
Sure.
but we actually have it set up as our outlet store.
Wonderful
So you can get
bargains
absolutely,
any given day. Love it.
absolutely. Overstocks, overruns.
Great. And
great
it
deals.
smells delicious.
Thank you.
Heather, we want to thank you and Brad for allowing us to come and tour your great company today. We really appreciate being able to tell the story of the rich history of Root and Medina. In closing, tell us a little bit about what Medina's history means to Root Candles.
Well, Medina is our hometown. We've always been here. Actually, next year we'll be celebrating 150 years.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you. So Root Candles has been a part of Medina almost as long as Medina has been here.
Absolutely.
So we look forward to many, many, many more years here.
Good. Much success to you. Thank you.
Thank you.